why even calling it a convenient store if it is so inconvenient? Is there any country out there who is doing it right? Not that long ago, Japan's convenience store wasn't that convenient either. Even until today, you can see kaizen everywhere. Why some of the first world countries don't do this? They have technology, they have power, they have money, but why don't they? Did you know that in Japan, you can buy your BTS concert ticket while picking up your bento box and coffee? No, me neither. So quick backstory. The other day, I was in a rush and I was heading somewhere but needed a quick bottle of water. So I conveniently stopped by at a convenience store. Easy task, right? No, not really. 15 minutes later, I was still struggling to check out and hit the road again. So I automatically started thinking, why even calling it a convenient store if it is so inconvenient? And also, is there any country out there who is doing it right? Surely enough there are. And I think it's a very easy guess for a lot of us already. Japan holding the #1 place. An honorary mention to South Korea, Sweden, Taiwan, and few other countries who are not too far behind from Japan though. Turns out, not that long ago, Japan's convenience store wasn't that convenient either. It was more like those tiny local mom and pop shops. You would find a butcher here, a fishmonger there, some sweet or produce shops. More like a farmer's market, but permanent. The problem was those stores used to close early. They didn't have any refrigeration, no mass packaging. So technically, you cannot call that convenient either. Now the question is, how did they go from this permanent farmer's market to grabbing a dinner at 3 a.m. and a BTS concert ticket on the same trip? Let's forward a little bit. In 1974, Tokyo saw something new for the very first time. The first modern convenience store. It was a 7-Eleven, opened by a Japanese company called Ito Yokado, after they got a licensing deal with the original owner of 7-Eleven in America. Then, in May 15, 1974, they opened the first 7-Eleven in Toyosu, Tokyo. They did take the blueprint of the model. However, they instantly started improving it. And since then, they never stopped tweaking. It wasn't any business tactics, by the way. It's actually their culture to make constant and small improvements in everything. But the habit of perfecting did not just come out of nowhere. Let's rewind a little bit further to know about that. In 1940, back when Japan had just came out from World War II, rebuilding its entire economy from ground up.
Seeking to improve quality, Japan took an idea from an American statistician and transformed that idea into something deeply cultural.
Which they did. They adapted those methods and transformed them into deeply cultural, which is known as kaizen. The belief that constant small improvements can lead to huge results. Even until today, you can see kaizen everywhere. So obviously it's gonna show up in a convenience store too. They don't ask how cheaply they can provide a service. They ask how humanly possibly they can provide a service to a human. And that mindset changed everything. The food quality, the speed, the service, the technology in the public restrooms, you name it, everything. People in Japan actually work very long hours. Some may live alone, and actually they have a huge number of elderly population. Quick fun fact, did you know that Japan actually hit a record number of 90,000 centenarians this year? So by keeping all these things in mind, Japan's convenience store started offering all the late night bill payments kiosk, 24 hours pickup and delivery services, seating arrangement for freshly cooked food, and even softer food for elderly population. Not just because it's trendy, but it's handy. But here is the thing. Kaizen might be the heart of all this, but it's not working alone. The system around it is built to support constant improvement. Regulations don't just permit a store to open and run it day and night. It sets a very high standard of quality, service, and safety. It doesn't matter if you walk into a city or a rural 7-Eleven, Lawson, or FamilyMart in Japan, the service, quality, safety will always be the same. And the government adds another layer to it by treating convenience store as a part of a disaster readiness plan. Japan has actually one of the highest earthquake risk in the world, with thousands happening every year. So having a konbini nearby that can provide you water, food, and shelter when everything else shuts down during a disaster is part of the plan. That's how they became one of the places that people could still rely in a disaster time. So culture surely drives the improvement, but the system makes sure it lasts. And while we're speaking of Japan doing things differently, here is one twist I didn't see coming. Also, I'm a little bit ashamed for not knowing this information, but hear me out. Japan actually has owned 7-Eleven since 2005. The same company who opened the first convenience store in Toyosha, Tokyo, they ended up buying the whole 7-Eleven company from the American owner. Not gonna dig into that, it's a story for a different time. But my question to you, Japan, you own 7-Eleven since 2005. So why don't you make all the other countries to follow your standards? Anyway, so Japan's success story comes down to its mindset, but the system and government backed it up big time. But that makes me wonder why some of the first world countries don't do this. They have technology, they have power, they have money, but why don't they? Is this cultural? Is this system? Or is the government? Or simply maybe we don't care enough? Japan did not build the convenience store just to sell stuff. They were built to serve people. And that part, it's a choice, the one we have not made yet. Imagine if every public places were built with this much care, not only for profit, but actually for humanity. And that's all for this video. If you liked hanging out here, please drop a subscribe, like this video, and I'll see you next month. Till then, stay cozy, stay curious.